The morning sunlight streaming through the window of a Manhattan high-rise gently illuminated the bedroom. Melissa Johnson placed her hand on her rounded belly and smiled as she felt the baby move. Melissa had made a name for herself as one of the city's top event planners. She was particularly known for handling important corporate ceremonies and weddings for the wealthy, and her sense of style and execution were highly respected in the industry. "Good morning, you two," said Stephen, who had just finished his shower and was drying his hair with a towel. Stephen was a sharp businessman who held an executive position at a major Wall Street investment firm. Standing at 6 feet 2 inches with a trim physique and intelligent gaze, he had aggressively pursued Melissa after meeting her at a charity event she organized, and they had married 3 years ago. "The baby is very active today." "I'm sure it's a girl," Melissa said with a smile. Now 7 months pregnant, her belly had grown quite large. Their bond had strengthened even more since learning they were expecting their first child. "You think it's a girl? What about names?" Stephen asked. "We haven't decided yet. But we'll find out the gender at our next appointment," Melissa replied. While tying his tie, Stephen suddenly remembered something. "Oh, how are the preparations for this weekend's baby shower coming along? My mother said she's coming, right?" At those words, Melissa's expression clouded slightly. Her relationship with Stephen's mother, Barbara Johnson, was far from ideal. Barbara was 62, a woman with conservative values from South Carolina. After losing her husband 10 years ago, she had moved to Long Island and now ran a small upscale interior design shop. Barbara had always wanted Stephen to marry a girl from a good family and considered Melissa, with her self-made career, unsuitable. Though outwardly civil, her words often had barbs that never missed an opportunity to hurt Melissa. "It'll be fine. Jenny is helping me," Melissa said. Melissa's sister, Jennifer Carter, was a sharp attorney working at a major New York law firm. Though sisters, they were quite different. Jennifer was tall and slim, while Melissa was petite with a fuller figure. Their personalities were opposites too. Jennifer would do anything to protect her sister and stood firm against Barbara's snide remarks. "If Jenny's coming, that's reassuring," Stephen said with relief. He too was concerned about the relationship between his mother and Melissa. He sometimes found himself caught between gratitude to his parent and loyalty to his beloved wife. Melissa stood by the window, looking at the view outside and thinking about her own parents. Robert and Carol Green lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Robert was a retired high school teacher, and Carol volunteered at the local library. They were warm, understanding people who had welcomed Stephen as their own son. "Your parents are coming too, right?" Stephen asked. "Yes, of course. Mom is already excited. She's making a hand-knitted blanket for the baby." Stephen smiled and placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. "Do you think you'll be able to get along with my mother?" Melissa took a deep breath before answering. "It'll be fine. Barbara must be looking forward to having a grandchild, and this might improve our relationship." In reality, Barbara constantly engaged in small acts of hostility toward Melissa. She would send cards on their wedding anniversary with notes like, "I wonder if you're making my son happy," or give her clothes one size too small for Christmas, saying, "Be careful not to gain too much weight." While maintaining a facade of harmony, their relationship remained cold. "Is there anything I can help with before heading to work?" Stephen asked, already glancing at his watch. He had recently been assigned an important project at work and was busy with the pressure and responsibility. However, his efforts were beginning to pay off. In particular, his success in building a relationship with Alexander Ross, a real estate development mogul, was becoming a major turning point in his career. "No, don't worry about it. You focus on your work," Melissa said, kissing his cheek as she sent him off. Alexander Ross was a businessman in his mid-60s and one of the most important clients for Stephen's company. Their recent business negotiations had been successful, earning Stephen high praise from his company. Left alone in the room, Melissa spoke again to the baby in her belly. "You know, baby, when you're born, everyone will become kinder. Even Grandma will warm her heart when she sees you." Though she told herself this, a corner of Melissa's mind remained anxious. How should she interact with Barbara at the upcoming baby shower? How would her mother-in-law's critical eye hurt her this time? Melissa took a deep breath to calm herself, then headed to her desk. The event room at a luxury hotel near Central Park in Manhattan was decorated with pastel balloons and flowers. Pink and blue ribbons adorned the walls alternately, and a large banner reading, "Welcome Baby Johnson," was displayed. Beautiful decorated tables were arranged in the center of the room, laden with cute cakes and finger foods. Despite having produced the event herself, Melissa was completely in the role of guest of honor today. She wore a light lavender maternity dress that gently enveloped her growing belly. "Mel, the venue looks amazing. You're such a pro," said her sister Jennifer, approaching with 2 champagne glasses in hand. As she handed Melissa a non-alcoholic sparkling juice, she whispered, "She's here." Turning around, Melissa saw Barbara Johnson standing at the entrance. Dressed in an emerald green dress with perfectly styled short white hair, Barbara stood out. Next to her was a young assistant from her shop, holding a large box. "Melissa, what a lovely party," Barbara said, approaching Melissa with a smile that seemed merely polite, kissing her on the cheek. Melissa didn't miss the coldness lurking behind that smile. "Thank you, Barbara. I'm glad you could come," Melissa responded politely, looking around for Stephen. He was on the opposite side of the room, deep in conversation with Alexander Ross and his wife Sandra. Alexander was an imposing man in his late 60s, with sharp eyes and salt and pepper hair. He was a legendary figure in New York real estate and one of the most important clients for Stephen's company. Inviting him as a special guest had been Stephen's suggestion. True to Stephen's words that blurring the line between business and private life can sometimes deepen relationships, Alexander had gladly accepted the invitation. As time passed, the room gradually became livelier. Melissa's friends, colleagues, and her parents Robert and Carol arrived. They immediately went to Stephen, exchanging hugs. "It's time for me to MC. Are you ready?" Jennifer gently tapped her sister's shoulder. She had volunteered to be the MC for the day. When Melissa nodded, Jennifer stood in the center of the room and tapped her glass lightly to get everyone's attention. "Everyone, we're gathered here today to celebrate Melissa and Stephen's first baby. This is a special moment for them and for our family," Jennifer said. Her words were met with warm applause from the room. "Now, after some fun games, we'll move on to the present opening time." The guests enjoyed games predicting the baby's gender and birth date, and discussed the name candidates Melissa and Stephen had chosen. Barbara participated with a smile, but her eyes seemed to be constantly observing Melissa. Finally, it was time to open the presents. Melissa sat in a special chair placed in the center of the room, with Stephen standing beside her. Presents were handed to her one by one, and each time cute baby clothes, toys, or practical childcare items were revealed, cheers erupted. "Next is a present from Stephen's mother," Jennifer announced, and Barbara stepped forward with a broad smile. Her assistant placed a large box in front of Melissa. "It's a special gift, Melissa. Open it," Barbara said. Her voice seemed to lack the usual sarcastic tone, which made Melissa smile back with a bit of hope. "It's the best gift for my grandchild," Barbara added, and all eyes in the room turned to Melissa. She untied the ribbon and slowly opened the lid. For a moment, she was speechless at what she saw. Inside the box was another box printed with the logo of a major DNA testing company. A catchphrase reading, "Confirm your family connections," was printed in bright colors. "This is..." Melissa faltered, and Barbara said loudly. "A DNA test kit. Because we can't be sure if it's really my son's child, can we?" Barbara laughed loudly, but hers was the only voice that echoed through the room. The venue froze completely. The color drained from Melissa's face, and her hands began to tremble. Her parents looked at Barbara in shock. "Mom, what are you saying?" Stephen's voice was low, clearly suppressing anger. His face was red with rage, and he was clenching his fists tightly. "Just a joke, Stephen." "Everyone's taking it too seriously," Barbara said with a laugh, but the atmosphere in the room had already changed. People exchanged glances, unable to hide their discomfort. Melissa's friends were looking at her with concern. Amid the tension, Stephen suddenly stood up. His expression was filled with determination. "Mom, actually, Melissa and I have already been tested," he said. Stephen took out his mobile phone from his pocket, scrolled through the screen, and held it up toward Barbara. "Here are the results. Tests conducted under a doctor's supervision. It was part of our fertility treatment." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Melissa looked up at Stephen, relieved that he was defending her. "We've been trying for a long time to have a child," Melissa said quietly. This was something they hadn't made public. They had finally conceived with medical assistance. Stephen stared sharply at Barbara and said sarcastically, "Mom, it's doubtful whether you're really Dad's child. What would Dad think of your behavior today if he were alive?" Barbara's smile froze. The color drained from her face, and she opened and closed her mouth as if at a loss for words. Stephen, I was just..." But Stephen cut off his mother's words. "Enough, Mom. I won't allow you to hurt Melissa any more today." A heavy silence dominated the room. Alexander Ross whispered something to his wife, and they both wore uncomfortable expressions as they nodded briefly to Melissa and Stephen before leaving the room. "Melissa, are you okay?" Jennifer rushed to her sister's side. Her eyes mixed anger with concern. "Why, yes." Melissa answered weakly, but her face was pale. Stephen put his arm around his wife's shoulders and gently embraced her. "Everyone, let's end here for today, considering Melissa's condition," Stephen announced. The guests, though confused, showed understanding and began to leave one by one. Barbara remained stunned, but no one spoke to her. In the gradually emptying room, Melissa remained seated, still clutching the DNA test kit box. Tears welled in her eyes, but they were tears of anger rather than sadness. "I never thought the day would turn out like this," Melissa whispered, and Stephen took her hand. "Melissa, you've done nothing wrong. My mother's behavior is unforgivable. I'll make sure she takes responsibility," he said. His voice had a coldness and determination she had never heard before. The last to leave the baby shower venue were Stephen, Melissa, and Barbara. A heavy atmosphere hung between the three as they descended to the hotel lobby. Melissa's parents and Jennifer watched from a short distance away. "Mom, we need to talk," Stephen said. His voice was low and controlled, but flames of anger burned in his eyes. He led Barbara to a corner of the lobby, away from prying eyes. Melissa silently followed. "Stephen, you've lost your sense of humor. I was just..." "A joke?" Stephen raised his voice. "Do you think that was a joke? You insulted Melissa's character in public." Barbara seemed a bit shaken by her son's vehemence but quickly regained her composure. "You're overreacting. I was just suggesting a way to confirm family ties." If you're really confident, there's no need to get so angry. That's not the issue, Stephen said through gritted teeth. Do you have any idea how hard Melissa and I struggled to have this baby? Barbara glanced sideways at Melissa. That's what I said. If you can't have children naturally, something must be wrong. Tears welled in Melissa's eyes, but she fought hard to hold them back. Stephen grabbed his mother's shoulder firmly. This is your final warning. Unless you apologize to Melissa, I'll reconsider our relationship. I can't allow you to hurt my wife, even if you are my biological mother. Barbara pulled herself away from her son and straightened her jacket. Well, you've always been dramatic. You'll calm down by tomorrow. I'll call you this weekend. Aren't you listening? Stephen's voice grew stronger. No contact unless you apologize. Barbara looked at her son in disbelief, then muttered, well, before heading outside to call a taxi. Stephen returned to Melissa and gently embraced her. Are you okay? Melissa buried her face in her husband's chest and finally let her tears flow. Why does she hate me so much? Jennifer approached the couple and rubbed her sister's back. Let's go home. You can rest at my place. The next morning, in the living room of Jennifer's Upper East Side apartment, Melissa was sipping herbal tea, calmly reflecting on yesterday's events. Stephen had left for work early to attend an emergency meeting. I've never been so humiliated in my life, Melissa said quietly. I can't forgive that woman, Jennifer said, opening her laptop. Speaking as a lawyer, this is clearly harassment. It could even constitute defamation in a public setting. Legal action. Melissa looked at her sister in surprise. Of course, Jennifer continued with a serious face. She made statements that severely damaged your reputation in front of multiple witnesses. Especially with Stephen's client present. Melissa considered this. But bringing family issues to court. We could use it as a threat, Jennifer said sharply. Demand a formal apology and a written promise never to engage in such behavior again. If she refuses, we could consider legal action. Jennifer took Melissa's hand. Mel, you're always too kind. Sometimes you need to stand up for yourself. But she's Stephen's mother. She'll be this child's grandmother, Melissa said, placing her hand on her belly. That's right. And that's why a healthy relationship is necessary. We need to set clear boundaries before the baby is born. Just then, Stephen called. His voice sounded tired but also somehow tense. Melissa, are you okay? Yes, I'm resting at Jenny's place. How about you? How was the meeting? Well. Stephen hesitated for a moment. I got a call from Alexander Ross. He's cancelled a new office design project that would have used my mother's interior design shop. What? Melissa exclaimed in surprise. Jennifer leaned in to listen. He said he can't do business with vendors who have unstable family relationships. He has traditional family values, so he was quite disgusted by my mother's behavior yesterday. Melissa gasped. Barbara's interior design shop had a good reputation in Long Island, but she had struggled to secure contracts from major New York corporations. Alexander Ross's project would have been a great opportunity for her. Does Barbara know? She called me earlier. She was crying and screaming, asking me to fix it somehow. What did you tell her? I told her it was the consequence of her own actions. Stephen's voice was cold. Mr. Ross is above my boss's level. It's not something I can intervene in. Melissa felt a twinge of guilt but also a strange sense of liberation. It felt like Barbara was finally facing consequences for the many small hostilities she had directed at Melissa over the years. But will her business be okay? I don't think it's fatal, but the damage is significant. She apparently turned down other work saying she would be involved in this project. After hanging up, Melissa explained the situation to Jennifer. After thinking for a moment, her sister said, "Karma. If she's finally beginning to understand the seriousness of her actions, that's a good thing." That afternoon, Barbara called Melissa's cell phone directly. After a moment's hesitation, Melissa answered. "Melissa." Barbara's voice lacked its usual haughtiness and was trembling slightly. "Can we talk for a moment?" "Go ahead," Melissa answered briefly. "About yesterday." "I might have gone a bit too far," Barbara said, choosing her words carefully. "But you understand, don't you? The feelings of a mother worried about her son." Melissa took a deep breath. Is this what she considered an apology? "Barbara, you insulted my character in public. And on a special day for us." "I told you, it was a joke," Barbara insisted. "Even jokes have limits," Melissa's voice grew stronger. "And if you're really sorry, please stop making excuses." On the other end of the phone, Barbara could be heard taking a sharp breath. "Can I speak to Stephen? He's at work. And he said he won't take your calls." "What?" Barbara's voice rose. "I'm his mother. And I am his wife." "The wife carrying his child," Melissa said quietly but firmly. "If you truly want to repair the relationship, please apologize sincerely and promise to change your behavior in the future. Until then, we'd prefer you refrain from contacting us. To be treated like this." Barbara's voice mixed anger and sadness. "It's the consequence of your actions, Barbara." After hanging up, Melissa covered her face with trembling hands. She wasn't yet confident this was the right approach. But remembering the many small insults she had endured from Barbara over the years, she felt it necessary to take a firm stance this time. That evening, when Stephen returned home, Melissa told him about her conversation with Barbara. "Well done," Stephen embraced his wife. "Mom has never taken responsibility for her words and actions. She should learn a lesson this time. But she's your mother. She'll be this baby's grandmother." "That's true. So eventually, we'll need to repair the relationship. But first, she needs to reflect on her actions and sincerely apologize." Melissa nodded and spoke to the baby. "Hey, baby. We'll be okay. We're going to be a strong family." But in her heart, she wondered if the relationship with Barbara could really be repaired. And she worried whether the incident with Alexander Ross might also affect Stephen's work. It seemed many trials still awaited them. 2 weeks passed after the baby shower. Barbara continued to call Stephen and Melissa daily, but there was no response from either of them. She left voicemail messages, sent text messages, and even emails, but all were ignored. Barbara's interior design shop, Elegant Space, had taken a big hit after Alexander Ross's project was cancelled. Only she and her assistant Lynn remained in the store, with none of the former vitality. "Barbara, we've received a quote from the new supplier," Lynn handed over some documents. "It's 15% higher than before." Barbara sighed. The cancellation of the contract with Alexander Ross was beginning to affect other business relationships. Rumors spread quickly, and being labeled unreliable was fatal for business. "Thank you, Lynn," Barbara replied with a tired expression. "You can go home for today." After her assistant left, Barbara sat down on a luxury sofa in the store and covered her face with her hands. The business she had built up, and more importantly, her relationship with her son, were crumbling because of a moment's action. Her mobile phone vibrated. For a moment, she hoped it might be from Stephen, but the screen displayed a notification from the bank, a warning message that her income had decreased by 30% compared to the previous month. This wasn't supposed to happen, Barbara murmured. That DNA test kit was meant to be just a joke. No, that wasn't true. Deep down, she had thought Melissa wasn't good enough for her son. Worrying about Stephen's future, she had constantly tested Melissa, sometimes even tormenting her. The next day, Barbara was shopping at an upscale supermarket in Long Island. Mentally exhausted, she unconsciously picked up sweet treats and put them in her shopping cart, almost bumping into someone. "I'm sorry, Her words broke off mid-sentence. Standing before her was Carol Green, Melissa's mother. "Carol!" Barbara exclaimed in surprise. Carol's expression immediately hardened. "Barbara!" An awkward silence flowed between them. Carol turned her shopping cart, preparing to leave. "Wait, please," Barbara instinctively grabbed her arm. "Please, just listen to me for a moment." Carol responded calmly but firmly, "I have no desire to speak with someone who hurt my daughter." "I understand, I really do," tears welled in Barbara's eyes. "What I did is unforgivable. But please tell me how I can apologize." Carol stared intently at Barbara. Her usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled today, with dark circles of fatigue under her eyes. Her makeup was light, and there was no trace of her usual haughty attitude. "Are you truly remorseful?" Carol asked cautiously. "Yes," Barbara's voice choked. "I'm about to lose everything, my son, my business, and I might never meet my grandchild." Carol sighed. "Let's go to the cafe." In the small cafe inside the supermarket, the two women sat facing each other. Barbara tearfully explained the consequences her actions had brought. "I just wanted to protect Stephen. He's my everything. After losing my husband, he was my only support." Carol listened silently, but her expression had softened. "But that's your problem, Barbara," Carol finally said. "You've become overly dependent on your son and prioritized your feelings over his happiness. Melissa makes Stephen happy. That's all you should be concerned about." Barbara nodded silently. "If you truly want to change, you should show it through your actions," Carol continued. "Words alone aren't enough for an apology. You need concrete actions to help Melissa and Stephen rebuild their trust." "Tell me what to do," Barbara pleaded earnestly. Carol thought for a moment before answering. "First, seek professional help. There are issues with your behavioral patterns. You need to recognize that and make efforts to change." Barbara took those words to heart. That afternoon, she made an appointment with a reputable local psychological counselor. The first session was difficult. Dr. Levin, an older female counselor, listened to Barbara's story and then analyzed her behavioral patterns. "Mrs. Johnson, you seem to be confusing love for your son with obsession," Dr. Levin said quietly. "It's natural to wish for your son's happiness, but in your case, your dependence on him is too strong. This threatens his marriage." Barbara was able to view her behavior objectively for the first time. After her husband's death, she had placed excessive expectations and responsibilities on Stephen. She had secretly feared him becoming independent and having his own family. After about 3 counseling sessions, Barbara received an email from Jennifer Carter. The subject line read, "Regarding the possibility of legal action." With trembling hands, she opened the email to find content written in legal terminology. As Melissa's representative, Jennifer detailed how Barbara's behavior could constitute harassment and defamation, and that they were considering legal action. However, the end of the email also indicated room for settlement. Barbara immediately replied to Jennifer, stating she was willing to accept all conditions and began drafting an apology letter and improvement plan. With the counselor's help, Barbara frankly acknowledged the problems with her behavior and included specific improvement measures in her plan. "Respecting my son's independence and happiness," accepting Melissa as family, preparing to build a healthy relationship with my grandchild. She carefully wrote out each point. In her apology letter, she acknowledged the hurt and pain her actions had caused and expressed sincere regret. My actions hurt you and insulted your character. I will spend the rest of my life trying to rebuild trust with you, she wrote heartfeltly. Finally, Barbara voluntarily offered to participate in family therapy. She understood that professional help was needed for the whole family to build healthy relationships. Jennifer received the apology letter and improvement plan a month after the baby shower. She reviewed them with Carol and decided to share them with Melissa. An apology letter and improvement plan from Barbara. Jennifer handed the documents to Melissa in her apartment living room. Read them. They seem sincere to us. Melissa quietly read through the documents. Her expression was complex. Stephen sat silently beside his wife, his hand on her shoulder. What do you think? Stephen asked Melissa after she finished reading. She seems genuinely remorseful, Melissa answered quietly. But it's difficult to restore trust once it's been broken. Mel, we support whatever decision you make, Carol gently told her daughter. No one can force you. Melissa read the apology letter again. It conveyed Barbara's deep regret and strong desire to change. I think we should give her one more chance, Stephen said quietly. Mother made a mistake. A big mistake. But she's trying to change. As a family, maybe we can give her one last chance. Melissa was silent for a long time. Various emotions swirled within her: anger, hurt, fear, and a small hope. She placed her hand on her belly and thought about what would be best for this little life. All right, Melissa finally made her decision. Let's give Barbara one last chance. I'm willing to participate in family therapy. But make it clear this is her final chance. Jennifer nodded and promised to contact Barbara. Melissa gazed out the window, understanding that the road ahead would not be easy. But for her family and for the child to be born, she had found the courage to take a step toward reconciliation. A baby's healthy cry echoed from the delivery room of a luxury Manhattan hospital. After a long labor, Melissa had given birth to a beautiful baby girl. Outside the window, the spring sunlight seemed to shine in celebration of the new life. She's perfect, Stephen said with tears in his eyes as he held the tiny baby. His expression overflowed with indescribable joy and emotion. She really is beautiful, Melissa smiled, looking exhausted but happy. I've decided on a name. I want to call her Elizabeth, after my grandmother. Elizabeth Johnson, Stephen quietly repeated. A wonderful name. Melissa's parents and Jennifer had already rushed to the hospital room. Carol was overcome with emotion as she held her granddaughter, while Robert proudly took pictures of the new family. Did you contact Barbara? Carol quietly asked Stephen. He thought for a moment, then nodded. I sent her a message. But I haven't invited her to the hospital yet. The relationship with Barbara was healing gradually. 3 months had passed since they began attending family therapy sessions, and she was understanding her behavior patterns and continuing to make efforts to change. With the help of Dr. Martin, a family therapy specialist, Barbara, Stephen, and Melissa were slowly building dialogue. 2 weeks after Elizabeth's birth, a family meeting was held. Barbara would like to meet her granddaughter, Dr. Martin said gently. How do you feel about this? Melissa and Stephen exchanged glances. With conditions, Melissa said quietly. I'd like to start with short visits at our home. And so, when Elizabeth was 1 month old, Barbara visited Melissa and Stephen's apartment for the first time to meet her granddaughter. She appeared tense, bringing a small gift. This has been passed down from my mother, Barbara offered a silver baby bracelet. It's been handed down through generations, but if you like, it's for Elizabeth. Melissa accepted the gift with a faint smile. Though complete trust had not yet been rebuilt, this was a new beginning. Thank you, Barbara. When Barbara held Elizabeth, tears welled in her eyes. Such a beautiful child. She whispered. Stephen, she looks like you. Meanwhile, Barbara's business continued to struggle. Rumors of her failed project with Alexander Ross had spread throughout the industry, making it difficult to acquire new clients. She had to downsize her shop and lay off some staff. However, when Elizabeth was 3 months old, Barbara received an unexpected phone call from Sandra, Alexander Ross's wife. Barbara, I've always valued your work, Sandra said on the phone. I heard you've been working on your family issues. I believe in second chances. I have a project to redesign my friend's apartment. Are you interested? Barbara was too moved to speak. Though this was a small project, it could be an important turning point for her business. Thank you, Sandra. I truly appreciate this opportunity, Barbara replied, fighting back tears. The project was successful, and Barbara's business slowly began its road to recovery. Her sincere attitude and efforts to change gradually became recognized by those around her. Then came Elizabeth's first birthday. Melissa planned a modest but warm birthday party at home. The room was decorated with balloons and ribbons, and a small cake sat on the table. Barbara was invited too. She participated in the party modestly, showing affection for her granddaughter while respecting Melissa's parental decisions. There was no trace of her former domineering attitude. For Elizabeth, Barbara gave a small picture book. It was my favorite book as a child. I read it to Stephen too. Thank you, I'll read it to her, Melissa smiled gently. As they sang the birthday song and watched Elizabeth happily reach for the cake, Melissa reflected deeply. A year ago, the incident at the baby shower had been one of the greatest humiliations of her life. But now, she felt that experience had helped everyone grow a little. Toward the end of the party, Melissa and Barbara found themselves alone in the kitchen. Melissa, thank you for this past year, Barbara said quietly. If you hadn't given me a second chance, I wouldn't be who I am today. Melissa thought for a moment before answering. Mistakes can help people grow. Barbara, you have changed. I acknowledge that. I understand it will take much more time to earn your complete trust, Barbara said honestly. But I believe it's worth taking that time. Melissa nodded. For Elizabeth's sake too, we need to move forward as a family. Returning to the living room, they found Stephen dancing while holding Elizabeth. The little girl was laughing happily in her father's arms. Melissa's parents and Jennifer were warmly watching the scene. As Melissa gazed at this new family formation, she thought to herself, we're not perfect yet. But everyone is making small steps toward each other, trying to understand one another. Perhaps that's what a real family is. Outside the window, the evening light gently streamed into the room, quietly illuminating the hope for a new tomorrow.